Well, up to 24,000 Afghans have moved to the UK under a secret scheme that was set up after a British official accidentally leaked their data. Let's break this down with Spiked Online Editor Tom Slater live from London. Tom, this is making headlines right across the UK. It's a massive bungle. Can you take us through the details and explain what exactly has gone on?
No, absolutely. I mean, this is a scandal of huge proportions, and there's just so many layers to it. First of all, you have the data breach itself, 24,000, roughly speaking, Afghans and their families, predominantly people who were serving in the Afghan army, supporting British forces during the occupation. They had their information leaked. A Royal Marine accidentally sent this spreadsheet to someone. It then found its way onto the internet. The Taliban have been quoted, officials have been quoted saying that they were effectively handed a hit list via this breach. You then have this super injunction, which is used to stop the press from reporting on it, to stop this from coming out. Unprecedented in British political history for this to be used to cover up the government's own deeds. And then you also have this secretive plan, this secretive operation to bring as many of these people as possible to Britain to settle them without any consultation with the public. There's even some reporting now that it's almost certainly was a contributing factor, the fact that these people just appeared out of nowhere and were dumped on various quite impoverished communities in the UK may well have been a contributing factor to that horrendous unrest we saw last summer. So from the bungle itself, as you say, putting thousands of people's lives at risk, through to the secrecy that the government has shown, through to just the completely undemocratic nature in which these arrivals, many of whom we do owe a debt of gratitude to, but surely you have to consult the public. From top to bottom, I think it just shows how rotten the British state has become in so many respects.
You're right, there's a lot of layers to it, and it's just an incredible scandal that I think has still got a fair bit more to play out yet.
Absolutely.
The effectiveness of so-called de-radicalisation programs, we've heard a lot about those, but their effectiveness has been called into question after it was revealed the man who stabbed Tory MP Sir David Amess 20 times, killing him, that was a number of years ago, but the killer had been described as, quote unquote, a great person by a police counter-terrorism official during a risk assessment prior to the killing. The killer had been referred to the government's anti-extremist program 7 years before the Islamic State fanatic stabbed David Amess in 2021. Tom, as I said, this really does call into question these de-radicalisation programs, doesn't it? When someone who's been associated with it has been given a glowing recommendation and then goes on in broad daylight to stab to death a member of parliament.
No, it shows that this story is even worse than we thought. I mean, when David Amess was murdered by this Islamist terrorist back in 2021, it became clear pretty quickly that he had been known to the authorities, as we so often hear after one of these killings, that he had been referred to Prevent, that it had lost touch with him about 6 years previously. But the fact that actually he was essentially given a ringing endorsement from the person who was meeting with him, from the person who was assessing him, I think it just shows the dysfunction of this anti-radicalisation scheme, the willful naivety of many people who work within it. I mean, in his post-murder interviews and interrogations, Ali Harbi Ali openly admitted that he deceived the people who were trying to de-radicalise him. Would that not be obvious to anyone who works in that space, that maybe someone who is attracted to an ideology that hates everything about this country, that hates everything about Western civilization, might not be telling you the whole truth? I would have thought that was obvious, but apparently not. And just finally, it's worth saying that Prevent has become so dysfunctional that Islamism is the primary terror threat that we face in this country by a country mile. It's about 95% of all the terror murders we've had over the past 25 years were Islamist motivated. If you look at who are being referred to Prevent at the moment, it's something like 13% are being referred to for Islamist extremism. It's now in fourth place behind right-wing extremism and other forms of non-ideological terror. So I think what we're seeing here is that this is a real issue throughout our supposed de-radicalisation services, which they don't seem to be catching or taking seriously the primary threat that we face. And David Amess and many other people have had to bear the brunt of that horrendous mishap.
Yeah, Tom, look, we don't often do this to you, but you are so good. I'm going to put you to the test. A question without notice, because there's some breaking news from the UK that the voting age is going to be lowered to 16 by the next election. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, this is something that Labour have been talking about for some time for the obvious reasons that they think it will help them electorally. Generally speaking, there's this assumption that younger voters tend to skew left. It's something which has already been trialled in Scotland and elsewhere. But I just think it just makes a mockery of the franchise. It's just kind of generational gerrymandering on behalf of left of centre parties. But at the same time, you do wonder whether it's going to backfire. Younger people don't tend to turn out in elections in the way that parties would hope them to. And also around the edges, you're seeing a lot of younger people who are fed up with lots of the establishment left-wing parties, or even a surprising number of young people are turning to parties like Reform. So I think it's a bad idea on paper, but I do wonder whether or not it's going to backfire on them as well, given the fact that politics isn't, it's a lot of the old certainties have been kind of thrown up in the air at the moment.
Well, as a parent, I've got twin 20-year-old boys, but I tell you what, when they were 16, I would not have given them the vote, that's for sure. I want to ask you about a UK court decision. A court has ruled that a police force failed to act impartially when it allowed officers to take part in a gay pride and transgender rights march. Just take us through that case and what are the likely implications for other police forces around the UK? Because these pride marches are very popular with police forces, same in our country.
No, absolutely. So this relates to Northumbria Police, them not only attending and participating in a pride march up in the northeast, but, you know, actually having their police crest emblazoned with the trans pride colours, actively participating in this. And this is something that, as you say, you see up and down the UK, you see it in Australia, the way in which police forces who are supposed to be politically impartial, who may well be responsible on any given day for policing a gender critical demonstration and a pro-trans rights counter demonstration. They cannot be seen to be on one side of any particular political argument. But for years now, they've been openly engaging in having floats at sometimes, dancing in pride marches. And it's something which has obviously infuriated gender critical campaigners who've often got quite a rough hand from the police, who have been arrested for accurately gendering someone on the internet, or who have found their own demonstrations quite tightly policed because they're deemed to be somehow inflammatory. So the hope is that this will be a bit of a kind of one domino to fall to try and rid the police of this kind of politicized, incredibly partial turn that they've been going under. But as ever with these things, it's a lot more difficult to root out. We can have a few court rulings, we can have a few big headline cases, but the problem is very much cultural. Police forces, as within so many other wings of the state, have just fallen to this ideology now, and it'll take a long time to root that out, I would suggest.
Yeah, I get that police want to convey the message that, hey, you can trust us, but I reckon the best way for the police to build trust is to police fairly and well, rather than to become involved in all of these diverse groups and taking on different ideologies. I think the point is well made. Tom Slater, always a joy to talk to you. Thanks for joining us tonight.